August 17th, 2022. 300 million American senses of humor were silenced on the day YouTube attacked. The survivors of the comedic cleansing called this homosexual war cancel culture. They lived only to face a new gender-neutral nightmare: the war against free speech. The big tech cabal who controlled the media outlets, the New World Order, sent bad actors and phonies through the news channels. Their mission? To destroy the core of American pride and the American dream, our culture. The resistance was able to send a lone warrior, a protector of pure comedy. It was just a question of who would reach America first.
Come with me if you want to laugh.
Glad to be with you. That's the sound of I guess the sound of Monday. I don't know. It's just, you hear that every day. But glad to be with you. It's Monday. Many of us did not get sleep. We were at Toolman's barbecue this weekend. Oh. He was inebriated, and he's a sweetheart. Before I move on here, we have a lot to get to. Sometimes you ask, hey, what can you do to support the show? And like Dave, you just came back, and fans will, like a fan just gave me a check.
Yes.
We can't cash those.
I can, if you want to just change the name
Sure.
to Cash.
Especially when it's out to drug dealer Lou.
Which is strange.
That's,
weird, yeah.
You know, you should, I mean, it's almost a little on the nose. But the best thing you can do, look, hit the like button, share, leave comments below, because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And you know what? Go out to a live show. We still have tickets in Houston. It's one of those areas where we can expand it from, like 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000. So we're able to see how many people in Houston you can get out. And it's a lot of fun to be around with thousands of people and just a wall of laughter, fun. It's a party. It's not a think tank event.
No,
it's a lot of fun. And remember, Colorado, it was deafening.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
So that's what you can do.
It's going to be packed.
We don't do any Patreons. We don't have any GoFundMes. There are enough freeloaders on this ship. All right, we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris. She's a fraud. And then we'll be talking about, I don't know if you know this, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, all these major credit card companies now, they're effectively creating a gun registry. So what do you do? Here's my question to you. What do you do? I'm a recovering libertarian. Comment below there. You can hear it, Toolman. What do you do when you have company, when you have Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, and now you have all these major credit card companies and, of course, banks who've decided to work with the government? Does the libertarian argument of, the First Amendment, your rights only apply as it relates to government? I don't think so anymore. I don't think so. We're at a point where there's nowhere you can turn without the influence and pressure, not only of the national government, but international governments. So talk about that and more. There are also donkey wieners being smuggled. That's something you want to stay tuned for. Gerald, how are you?
I'm doing well. Why did you lead in with donkey wieners to me?
Well, you were so enthusiastic about it at Run Through.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, you brought your own.
Yeah, I know.
One of those busts was me. I'm actually waiting sentencing.
And then quickest man on his feet. We are live. I guess we just opened up 200 tickets in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So you can go to loudwithcrowder.com/tour. September 16th, Phoenix. September 17th, Houston. The Rebels of the Cause tour. Dave Landau, how are you?
Ahoy, good. How about you, sir?
I'm fine. Can I take a moment before we get to the news to tell you a story? And I don't know if this is.
To hear it.
I don't know if this is one of those things where when you become a dad, you find things funny that other people don't find funny.
Oh, for sure.
But I would like some advice here because
not crib death.
No, Sid's is not funny.
No.
Hey,
this is ironically a kid named Sid.
and still sad.
So I don't know what you do when your child does something horrible that but you involuntarily can't help but laugh.
Oh, yeah.
My son did something not that bad. You tell me if you think this is actually something. It's just because I'm a dad that it's funny. So I have twins, right? There's a girl and a boy, and they roughhouse a little bit.
Right. And people ask if they're identical.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to hit them.
Yes, exactly. Well, these are leftist doctors.
Yes.
Like, you didn't assign a gender, did you? No, I didn't. No one does. No one assigns a gender. Okay. So she grabs him by the collar this weekend, pulls him down. Just grabs him by the collar and kind of pulls him down. And he's a really sweet boy, my son. So he often, he'll give her things if she wants them. If she's crying, he gives her his pacifier. So here's what happens.
Yeah.
He falls down. She laughs. He gets up and he looks at her and he goes, and he takes out her pacifier. That's not the funny part. So he takes it out and she starts crying. They're 1 year old exactly. And then he looks at her and I swear to you, this happened. He starts motioning, putting the pacifier back, and she opens her mouth like he's going to give it back, okay. And then he fakes her out and smacks her with the pacifier. Fake out like this and put his body into it.
Oh my gosh.
Like a Stockton slap and with the pacifier.
Was it retribution for something?
That's what it was because she pulled him down.
Oh,
he faked her out. She's like, I went, and my dad, like, oh my God. Don't do that. We say no, but it's just, what do you do when it's that funny?
You laugh and say no?
He faked her out.
He's going to be driving a lime green Cadillac one day.
Yes, exactly.
That's hilarious. No, it's funny. They're one. I mean, it's hilarious. I know it's wrong to say it, but it's funny.
It's funny. I mean,
kids do horrible stuff that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It defines who you are. And people say kids are so innocent. And no. If you understand the human condition, kids are awful, horrible, selfish beings if left to their own selfish motivations. That's why you have to teach them right from wrong. And liberals believe that we are all inherently good. And of course, as people who are conservatives, we understand that there's damage that can be done because people are inherently bad. So we want to mitigate that centralized power. I don't want the president to fake me out with a passy and smack me. That's the point.
They do that to him all the time.
Yes, they do.
In the old folks.
They have the silicone spoon so it doesn't choke them.
It is true, though. It's what Trey Parker and Matt Stone were saying, too, when they invented South Park. And people were like, how can you make kids look that awful? And he was like, they are awful.
Yes.
That's why. They're selfish and terrible, so we do that with the kids.
Are you better now or when you were a teenager? Think about it. Of course, you grow. Yeah. You evolve, unless you're in this room. This is like Neverland.
It is. Just without the,
in a bad way.
Captain Hook wasn't that bad. Okay,
terrible.
Just for really quickly, in case you thought, before we get to the news, in case you thought, if before this you thought, as Nick DiPaolo says, that soccer is for 6-year-olds and homosexuals from Greece, you stand corrected. This is in Sweden, and most of those are men.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What the?
Those are men?
This is soccer.
In gold?
This is why I don't care about soccer. Watch the man right in the middle in gold. That pirouette, that's a man.
What?
It was a man.
That's an athlete. In Europe, that constitutes an athlete, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we left.
This is not real soccer.
Is that real soccer?
No, it's of course not.
What is it?
Yes, it is. That's a pre-soccer thing, isn't
It's
it?
not.
Oh,
It's not.
Well, then I don't know.
What is it?
It's something in Stockholm that is exactly how I picture Stockholm.
That's
yes.
true.
Syndrome?
Yes. That's Stockholm. It's like either it's Let the Right One In, a vampire movie.
Well, they couldn't do their gay festival because of monkeypox, so they did that.
Why would anyone attend this and just be like, well, this is fun.
This is great.
Now we have several hours of the game to watch.
And it's unskilled gay dancing. That's what's most offensive. There's nothing good about it.
It's not even choreographed.
No, it's not. Not until they scored a goal, apparently. Then they got in a circle and twirled.
That cupcake's pureting. I don't know what it's called. The other one's doing the splits.
It's like if Greg Louganis just belly flopped in glitter. You're like, well, it's not skill. I get it's not the AIDS thing. It's that you're not good.
Yeah. Here comes their dads to congratulate them. Nobody comes on the field.
All right, moving on. Moms. How about moms come down to congratulate?
All right, that's about all we have on that. So,
Gross.
I don't know if you, and this is, it starts off, this is pretty silly, but then you understand why it's concerning. Hint, spoiler, China. So, September 8th, I don't have this thing. There was a shipment of 7,000 donkey penises in 16 sacks.
Wow.
That were intercepted by Nigerian customs officers.
Toothbrushes.
100 kilograms of donkey appendages. And if you're going to number it, that's the poundage or kilograms. We're going by metric here, 2,754. And you're wondering why these penises are being used to make a traditional medicine in China called Ujiao, which purportedly treats or prevents many problems, including miscarriage, circulatory issues, and premature aging. So there you go, your next great superpower.
Oh, not good.
I just thought they were sneaking them in to be used as steaks at Golden Corral.
I would assume. Now, what is Hunter Biden going to pass out on Halloween?
Yes, they were marked to Stelter. By the way, he uses them as cocktail swords. All right, let's
A lot of dongs.
so let's move on here. Hey, Tool Anderson, can you get this thing going here because I need to make sure I hit the plugs.
I'm looking into it.
Okay. Have you guys been reading about this? Is one of those issues, and I want to hear from you. Because we've talked about this with politicians. We had Marco Rubio on last week.
Yeah.
And libertarians, I think it's a very lazy argument when they'll say, well, the First Amendment only applies to the government. It doesn't apply to social media. So we've talked about that. Well, hold on a second. If the government is telling social media what they can and can't say, or if social media is subject to international forces, pressures, coalitions, and then it affects you as an American, at what point are you no longer an autonomous human being? So we have 5 companies that control 90-something% of all the information that flows. And then we also have now credit card companies. And this is basically, effectively, the first step towards a gun registry. And what happens is if you can't get it through the legislation because it's unconstitutional, well, they'll do it through businesses who, by the way, get bailed out and have kickbacks from government, so the two are one and the same. We really are at a point in this country where it's hard to tell the difference. It's hard to tell the difference between a private bank, a private institution, and the United States government. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they're now going to be tracking all gun purchases using this purchase code that they've set up. Yeah. And I'll get into why this is the case. But these are all major credit card companies, charge cards for people who are defenders of American Express. And of course, the left loves it. So who lobbied for this is important. But first, I just want you to understand and hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Credit card companies or certain banks or other financial services providers who say to themselves, you know what? This is not the business we want to be in.
Exactly.
He looks like a painting with the eyes that follow you.
Do that.
He does. It's a ventriloquist dummy that came to life.
They can make that choice. And so and I'm sure there'll be debates about that. But the larger opportunity here for everybody who has children, who cares about teachers and Americans here, and yes, there may be 100 or 1,000 people annually who will be lawful citizens who will be inconvenienced by an extra phone call that they will have to take either from a credit card company or the police. But I would argue to you,
is his nose growing?
and I would argue to you that inconvenience, if it saves a life or it saves 50,
there it is
one of the most worthy trades that this country will ever undertake.
Can we do away with this argument if it saves one life? If it saves one life, okay, well then you know what? Let's just permanently quarantine urban areas. Whoa. Meaning we'll just strip them of their rights. What? Because you would reduce crime. By a significant degree, that's where, intergun related crime, especially that would help young black men, right? They're disproportionately killed by gun crime in inner cities. You can't do that. Why? Because it's a violation of rights. But it would save one life. It would save one life, the inconvenience of being targeted by the NSA, FBI, or intelligence communities as proxy arms of, well, I guess these credit card companies are proxy arms of our American intelligence communities. He says police. Notice that little bait and switch. You're not going to be called by the local police department. You go and you purchase or you do an FFL transfer with your Amex card, and the next thing you know, you're being rated like it's Mar-a-Lago.
This is pretty stupid, though, because his own argument doesn't work. He says that if you care about teachers, if you care about students, that you're going to do this. Obviously trying to pull on heartstrings for school shootings, which is a horrible thing. This wouldn't prevent a single one of them. This would be used after a shooting to see what happened, because somebody can walk in and buy a gun. It's not going to show up on Amex. It's going to ping that code. That's it. Not your purchase, not what you bought. I could go in there and buy goggles. I can go in there and buy all kinds of accessories for guns. I can buy ammunition. I can buy whatever I want.
Goggles?
And they won't, glasses,
so weird to start with
glasses, goggles, whatever.
How many goggles purchases are you making?
Well,
what do you do in your free time?
And I get pinged with a lot of phone calls.
Mainly swimming goggles.
Right, but that's not going to prevent any of these shootings. So the guy's argument is baseless to begin with, right?
Right.
But he's saying something that makes you think, oh, well, this is going to protect
If I care about
kids.
teachers,
Yeah.
and this is what they always, if you care about teachers, well, I do care about teachers. If you care about kids, well, I do care about kids. Then you're fine with your private information being reported by these credit card companies to the government, who can then target and prosecute you. By the way, we've had this in California. Just before we move on to why this is happening, in California, obviously, you have even ammo, for example, has to be tracked. Yeah. And you know who that affects most? It affects competitive shooters. Not mass shooters.
Right.
It affects competitive shooters. It affects hunters. It affects people who go out and their hobby is working with firearms. The truth is, if you see, most of the time, someone who has that many firearms and that much ammo, it doesn't really necessarily mean that they're a prepper. They're just people who are meticulous about their firearms. These are the people who you want. It's the only area where we condemn someone. If they're into firearms, we condemn them as though it's worse. Whereas with every other hobby, or with every other profession or every other amateur competitive sport, we say, hey, it's great. The more time they spend with it, the more they futz around with their equipment, the more practice they get. But with firearms, all of us, we want to say, well, that's a red flag. So we want more untrained people. We want people who are less familiar with their firearms. This is who these laws will disproportionately affect first, and then they come for you. Now, why is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, why? I don't know about Diners Club.
They're all about it.
Yes. This exists in a vacuum. No, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So the standard first was created by the Switzerland-based International Standards Organization. ISO is what we'll use for short in the future. Now, they set a lot of financial industry rules. Now, it's not a law. It's not a law.
Right.
They suggest it. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and then Visa, MasterCard, American Express give your private information over to the government. See how that works? If it's unconstitutional, there are ways around it. And the new code was originally proposed by the Amalgamated Bank of New York, and they brand themselves as a socially responsible lender. Sorry, I mispronounced asshole. And congressional Democrats, of course, they pressed credit card companies to implement the new code. So think about this for a second. They want to do away with the filibuster. They want to pack the court, right? They want to do away with these institutions that they blame you for not trusting. And when that doesn't work, when we have a Supreme Court case, for example, that relates to New York, that it's unconstitutional for them to not allow you to carry, they find workarounds. In New York, workarounds were every single zone, unless otherwise expressed, is a firearm-free zone, or they send letters. And I mean this quite literally. Like socialist letters to Santa Claus. American Express, Elizabeth Warren wrote this.
She smoke signaled it.
Yes. She wrote a cookbook about it.
Yes.
Any idea how racist that is? There's zero Native American. She wrote the cookbook, Pow Wow Chow.
She got away with it.
That is so incredibly racist. She had to think about a stereotype. How would Native Americans write a cookbook? I'm going to do that. So she wrote this to the credit card companies, to American Express, Elizabeth Warren. We write to urge American Express to support the creation of a new merchant category code, MCC, which is the term you'll hear right now to sort of whitewash it, for gun and ammunition retail outlets, and to seek answers to reports that the company has obstructed efforts to create such a category, which would be an important step towards ending financial system support for gun trafficking, gun violence, and domestic terrorism. Now, let's be really clear. Domestic terrorists, we've heard that from the FBI, from Ray, from multiple. It always is hard for me to keep track of which official said what, but conservatives are the biggest threat. They're domestic terrorists.
Well, with the inventive square, at least all the gangbangers can use credit cards to purchase their illegal guns.
Yes.
That's what this assumes. Because it's like, we're going to end gun violence and we're going to end gun trafficking. Right.
Because
anything I've ever bought illegally is with a credit card.
Well, you want the points.
Yes, exactly.
It's like 10 times points if you use it on an illegal substance.
Plus, it's kind of a flex. I like to show them my Centurion card.
Yeah, exactly. You get 500. I get a lot of Sky Miles for fentanyl.
Yes.
Do you have a white card? I like a white substance.
But see, this is what happens.
Amex White.
When you say slippery slope, it's not an intellectual fallacy if you're already on that slope, right? Gun show loophole. We've told you it's not really a loophole. As a matter of fact, this is something I have had to use the gun show loophole. Why? Let me give you an example. Walther sometimes have to send me new products to sample, and sometimes I'll get multiple products, and then one time one was for you, and so what I do is I ship to me, then I do a legal transfer, half Asian, creates a document, we draft it up, where it's legally binding, there's your gun show loophole.
Yeah.
You cannot find crimes that have been committed, and certainly not to a statistical significance, of people getting their guns through gun show loopholes. So they said it's a gun show loophole. Let's close the gun show loophole. Then they expand and say, it's the online loophole, which really isn't an online loophole. It just means that you can purchase it illegally. And now they say, well, it's not a loophole. Let's just track legal purchases of firearms if we think, I don't know, it's a little bit over the limit and we want to draw suspicion. Right? Visa, MasterCard, Amex, you have international government pressures. Elizabeth Warren, congressional Democrats, and it's not even a law. And now your information is available to the federal government. Do you see this game? This is why I'm a recovering libertarian.
Yeah.
There is no line anymore between corporations and government. They are the government. By the way, just to give you an example, Amex received over $3.3 billion in bailouts.
Oops. Have they paid it all
Holy
back?
crap! Are you serious?
Yeah, none of them are immune from these bailouts. So what happens is they get bailouts from the government, and the government says, you better play ball. They are effectively like the mob, and then the media blames you for not trusting the institutions. Well, why the hell do you think that is? Airlines, banks, health insurance companies, are these industries that you're huge fan? Because they are the ones who are the largest recipients of bailouts. And then, of course, they have to play ball, and you say, well, my freedoms are just being removed more and more and more. Bailouts. Then they get a letter from Elizabeth Warren, and it's not a law, but your information is now available to the government. That's how it works.
You guys weren't doing well enough after putting people in crippling debt for the rest of their lives?
Yeah. No, we need more money for that.
Sorry, listen. Look, everybody, the average is $40,000 in debt with our card. We don't know what to do.
Well, I don't even know how that happens with Amex, right? It's a charge card. I don't think you're allowed to carry over.
They
Maybe
have
you are, but
flexible
it's incredibly punitive.
Yeah.
With Amex?
Yeah.
Oh, if you don't pay?
Yeah, it's basically like a charge card, not really like a credit card. And of course, the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, remember we all had high hopes for this guy.
Yeah.
He said he cheered the code, and he said, when you purchase an airline ticket or pay for your groceries, your credit card company has a special code for those retailers. It's just common sense that we have the same policies in place for gun and ammunition stores. Here's the difference. First off, whenever someone tries to compare firearms to anything, car insurance, when they try and compare it to groceries, when they try and compare it to, take your pick, those aren't expressly outlined as a constitutional right.
Yeah.
In the Bill of Rights. It's Amendment number 2. That's why it is different. You may not like it, but that's why it is fundamentally different. And there's a huge difference between a code from one of these companies, because they want to internally track what it is that you're buying, and that often sort of that data determines what they create rewards for going in the future. A lot of the times they have these like online marketplaces, right, where you can use your points, versus a code that is being implemented because of international governing pressures, shadow governments, and then the United States government demanding your private information, which we have seen them misuse time and time again. It's not the same thing. The false equivalency. Does it work for anyone? Again, best thing you can do, comment below, hit a like. Hit a like if you want people to learn. This is one of those things that you won't hear a lot about because the Queen, another one taken not too soon, is rolling through in a hearse with some palominos.
I don't understand why they're burying her in Scotland. I thought they didn't like each other.
What was odd was the guys in the kilts twerking on the hearse.
Yes.
Very weird.
I thought that was sort of disrespectful, but I guess she wanted it.
Well, we don't understand their traditions.
Yeah,
no, so much moisture from the ball prints.
It's a hot minute.
They ran out of washer fluid.
Ventriloquist dummy guy at the very beginning. He glossed over this, but this is one point. So this is not just about tracking what you do. This is about credit card companies choosing not to allow those transactions to take place in the first place.
Right.
They glossed over that, but they said it. He said, and they can decide whether they want those transactions to happen. They didn't go into any detail on it. It's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that they could deny that code across the board? No American Express card holder, if they chose, could make a purchase at that store. It would be declined.
Hey,
from buying a firearm.
Unless you got cash.
I mean, you could do it with cash, but
Unless you
how
took a
many people
cash
carry
advance.
cash?
Yeah.
Like, not a lot anymore. We tend to use all
We
of
would
our
just go get a
credit cards
cash
for it.
advance from the same card, really.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
there's
true.
a lot of ways to go around. This is why it's stupid on so many levels.
But who does it? Again, what is the goal here? Is to make voters out of criminals,
Of course.
and law-abiding citizens into criminals. It's to make
Yes.
criminals into voters and you into a criminal. You go and you purchase a firearm. Well, you know what? You can't if you use any of the major credit cards, which you most likely do. Wait, do you want to go around it? Well, guess what the next step is? I bet you that won't be allowed. You don't think they're going to crack down on cash purchases?
Yeah.
They're going to funnel you into this system that you have to use. And this isn't conspiratorial. You can see it happening before your eyes. We really are in some unprecedented territory here. This is happening so. Am I the only one who thinks this is happening so rapidly?
Well, it's obvious now, right? We're seeing it's the ends justify the means, right? They're saying, oh, well, we want to prevent school shootings, and that's just the thing that they throw out there for everybody. And they say, okay, then we can then do whatever is necessary to prevent it. And we're like, well, yes, of course. Average American says, yeah, of course. I don't want my kid to die in a school. Nobody does, right? So go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
This is only this happens in every other industry, and so this must be okay. That this is what they've said. Well, just fast forward a few years. One, you've seen that it hasn't stopped any shootings at all. None of the laws that they ever promote really would do anything at all for that. And two, this keeps you from being able to make purchases. It starts with guns. That's the obvious
This
one.
is
What's
a proxy
next?
registry. Let's be
Yeah.
really clear. If you use any major credit card, you are now a part of a proxy gun registry. Any guns purchased going forward, and I'm sure they can probably apply it retroactively. This is a gun registry, which of course is unconstitutional. We oppose in this country, and I'll get into exactly why we oppose it. Hey, by the way, can someone bring me a pen? I broke this like an idiot again.
Your pen.
I don't know how many pens I break per week. Thank God we buy them in boxes at Sam's Club.
Of 12?
So you have Elizabeth Warren writing a letter. You have Eric Adams, New York, biggest city in the country. Now you have California and New York's pension funds also lobbying for the decision.
Oh, those tiny little things?
Yeah, those are huge financial stakeholders. So to give you an idea, California's a $400 billion fund. New York's a $240 billion fund. Think about that. You've got $640 billion. You have ISO, right? Basically an international body that's not a governing body, but sets the financial standards. And then, thank you very much, Maximus. I appreciate it. Let me give you this one. And then you have American government officials who, this isn't a law, but you know what? Hey, we did give you that bailout.
Right.
And we're going to be able to determine which stores are allowed to stay open, by the way. Which stores will be punished? Which gun stores? You don't think they can pick winners and losers there?
Yeah. Be a shame if you didn't get a bailout next time around.
Be a shame if you didn't get a bailout.
But the government's been doing this with the states, too, right? If you want federal funding, which is basically us giving you your money back that we collected from your citizens in taxes, then you will do these things, right? They've threatened that the entire time. This is the same thing. I would not be surprised, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the bank may have had some pressure externally because the bank asked the ISO to do this.
Yeah.
The bank in New York that says that they are a socially responsible lender.
Why don't we learn from this shit? Can someone bring up, I think it's Houston, I don't know if it's, but I think it's Bank of America said, we are now specifically going to be lending money, going to be providing mortgages to areas of color, and we are going to relax the standards. We are going. Remember the subprime loan issue? And people say, well, hold on, they're not being bundled. It's not coming from the government. Of course it is. They write letters. They make phone calls. Haven't we seen, wait, what happens when you give money in a market that's clearly a bubble to people who have no ability to pay it back? Then afterwards, the government never accepts responsibility and say, oh, it's predatory lending. How in the hell does that make sense? I'm a predator. I'm going to lend money to someone who I know can't pay me back, even though that's how I make my money. Oh, wait, it's guaranteed by the government. And right now we have this with a gun registry. And where have we seen this, by the way? When people say, well, hold on, gun registry isn't that bad. Well, Australia, they had, I think it was 96, right?
Yeah.
In 1996, they had that gun registry. It was a buyback. Beto O'Rourke, kick flipper in chief, said that he supported a buyback like Australia. Well, it's a mandatory buyback. What does that mean? It means it's a ban.
Yeah, it's confiscation.
Yes, and now they're really turning it up. They're saying people who have not turned in their guns are going to face criminal penalties. This comes from The Guardian. If you surrender it, you can do so without penalty. The alternative is this is overlay C6. The alternative is a knock on your door from the police and the potential for serious criminal penalties, including imprisonment. Well, that's not scary when you have a government that also had quarantine camps for people with COVID.
Well, don't worry. You could either go to the quarantine camp or go to the quarantine camp and pay a $5,000 fine plus a $2,000 ride, I think, in one of the paddy wagons that they have over there. So
it's not mandatory. You just choose your path to the quarantine camp.
Well, yes.
Right.
Going to the camp is mandatory. How you get there is not completely up to you.
It can be either very expensive
right.
or not.
Yeah.
It can be extremely painful.
Yes.
You can give us your gun or the police will be at your door.
My teeth are soft.
We will poison their soul with a slight cough.
We have kangaroos.
And then, of course, you have New Zealand. They box. They have a similar registry with violators subject to 5 years in prison.
Good Lord.
Now, this is one of those issues where people say, well, we're not there yet. Well, keep in mind, again, historically, 1928.
Well, the word
Germany's
is very important to that.
Right, exactly. Every single horrible fascist, which will bring us to Kamala Harris afterwards when they try and accuse people on the right of... Fascists don't typically want to allow people more freedom to purchase firearms, allow people to speak freely, regardless of how offensive, and demand that actually private entities like credit card companies and social media not track your personal whereabouts. That's typically not the kind of action that you take from fascists, even if they tweet things that you don't like. Fascism, to give you an example, 1928, Germany's liberal, the Weimar Republic, they enacted gun registration laws requiring licensing for all weapons. And then, of course, and this is one thing the left says, I've said this before, Hitler was, of course, a leftist. The Nazis were socialists, and people go, "Oh, that's just have you seen?" They try and gaslight you. Have you seen conservatives? Of course, it's in the name, Nationalist Socialist Workers Party. And what did they say? Well, he actually didn't disarm people, Adolf Hitler. Only the Jews. Well, how did he do it? It started with a gun registry. Then in 1933, Adolf Hitler seizes power. What happens? He uses those exact records to identify, to disarm, and of course simultaneously publicly attack political opponents, the Jews, by othering them, saying they're the ones carrying diseases.
Yep.
They're the ones who are, others like people who perhaps aren't unvaccinated and you're out there purchasing firearms. Let's create a registry. Let's see if we can other half the country and then abuse the power. That's what fascism is. You can see the steps, and we are in the intermediary steps right now. We absolutely are. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most famous example that we have to point back at, because it had the most dire consequences, not for Germany, but for the world. And it wasn't just Jews. Jews were the convenient economical scapegoat. Is it sounding familiar right now? Our economy, people that don't get vaccinated are part of the reason that we can't open our economy back up, right? Do you remember hearing stuff like that? It was also black people, gypsies, and anybody that was deemed to be an enemy of the state.
Gays.
Handicapped, all of that, right?
Soccer
all
players.
Of those people. So we talk about 6 million Jews being killed in the Holocaust. There were about 6 million other people outside of that as well. Mm-hmm. That should be the most frightening thing that people who want guns confiscation have. That should be the most frightening thing that you ever hear in your life, because it allows a government to just run roughshod over you no matter what. And it doesn't matter if you like it today. It matters if you like it in 10 years, because think about it.
I won't.
The next person that comes to power could be against you.
Right.
And could hate the fact that you own an electric vehicle and come after you for that. That's now the dividing line. All right, these people suck because it's all coal powered. It's all these rare earth metals that we can't possibly get enough of those to change the world. We're getting rid of you guys. It changes. You don't want this ever. You want the citizens to have guns to put down any government that is tyrannical, whether it is right or left.
Well, and people will say you're just going to the Hitler comparison, which is like, no, I'm giving you a historical precedent, right, that exists. A precedence in this case. I think both of them probably are appropriate. So you see that's the worst that you can imagine. Obviously, that's the worst case scenario. And you see that with dictator after dictator after dictator. But then you have the intermediate steps where you have people who are arrested, people who are going to be reported. You see what's happened with the gun buyback. It's mandatory in Australia and New Zealand. That's the between step. And we are right now going into that between step.
Well, what's the best case scenario where it's worked? Australia?
We'll look.
Good point.
We'll find some example.
That's the worst is Hitler and the best is Australia now. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Super.
Yeah, we're on the right track.
Oh, great.
Aces.
Huh,
oh, well,
perfect.
I mean, Canada's best case example.
Yeah.
You can't.
We had a guy killed 22
yourself.
people on
Yeah.
16 separate occasions over the course of days because nobody could stop him, and just had a mass stabbing of 10.
Yeah.
People don't.
Hey, he's got a pocket knife. I don't know what to do.
I don't know. We didn't screen there for the Swiss Army knife. First, I thought he was attacking people with a magnifying glass there.
Like a bottle opener to 3 cats.
Turned out he opened his skull.
Oh.
So, by the way, even if the guns aren't confiscated, if they're not confiscated, they're still going to be tracked and logged. Again, that's the first step. And keep in mind, the FBI, this isn't an extreme example. FBI, we know they've used credit card info to track down people January 6th. Sorry, 9/11 times 2, the sequel, 9/11, more 9/11er.
But to stop school shootings, what would the Border Patrol agent use to borrow and then go into the school and stop the shooting if these aren't allowed?
There are two. There's one 100% constant with mass shootings.
Yeah.
The shooter is invariably, without exception, stopped by a good guy with a gun. Now, that good guy with a gun may be someone who's off duty, who has their own private firearm, or it may be the police, although we've been seeing that's more inept. Or sometimes, in a happy ending, the feel-good story of the year, the shooter takes out himself with a gun, where he goes from bad guy to good guy in that last flash of a second. The point is, they are only stopped by somebody with a gun. There's no way around that. Number two, it's not 100%, but it's 90-something%, depending on the stats. All references available at loudearthcrowder.com. These mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. There you go. We don't need to get down to, and sure, maybe these also are contributing factors. Psychotropic drugs that are prescribed inappropriately, perhaps. That's a chicken and the egg thing. Maybe they were prescribed these psychotropic drugs because they were already mentally unstable. Perhaps you can get to inter-race crime-related statistics if our intelligence community would monitor them. They actually won't record these anymore. Maybe, but 100% of the shooters are stopped by a good guy with a gun. And to the tune of 92, 94%, I've heard it as high as 97% of mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. There you go. If any other problem existed, where you said, okay, hold on a second. What are the through lines? 100% and 94. Let's start with that. Instead, you have Visa, MasterCard, and Amex telling gun shops that they can or can't sell to you and tracking it and sending it to the government. By the way, Rolling Stone, not a fan of them. They've also showed us that the FBI routinely harvests data from Facebook, WhatsApp, iMessage. The FBI, the government constantly tracks your whereabouts and uses private information that you think is private. You probably don't sign those. You probably don't read those agreements.
No.
Any of you read the actual iTunes agreements that you sign when they do an update? Do you have your lawyer scan it over?
Do you send changes back to negotiate?
Yes.
It's not how it happens.
No.
And what's the problem with this too as well is not only gun purchases, but then that becomes a macro issue if the government can determine, hey, who's a good citizen and who's a bad citizen. No longer did they break the law, but is this someone who we believe is good, we believe is loyal, we believe is someone who potentially is not a threat to the government? That's where you end up with a social credit system like, I don't know, exactly in China.
In areas where the system is in full implementation, more than 27 million airplane tickets, as well as 6 million high-speed rail tickets, have been denied because of low social credit scores, meaning that these people could not book a plane ticket or a train ticket because they had done something the government found unsavory. Not something that threw them in jail or was considered a crime, but something that was socially unacceptable to the Chinese government.
Like owning a Bible. And by the way, can you bring up that picture? What I love is in that video, Good Zoo is just as angry as Bad Zoo.
Yes.
Bad Zoo has a low credit. Yes.
Yeah, the
Bad Zoo's like, oh no, 435, and Good Zoo's like, oh no, 1278. They're both angry. None of them are happy. Why even show Good Zoo?
I have no idea.
Well, Good Zoo just doesn't have the travel money.
Right, exactly.
Well, no. He does. He
Why?
just can't travel.
Yeah, he has a social score, but he spent all his money trying to build up his good social score.
They duct tape airplanes together over there, Dave. It's not an issue of finance.
Just get a fake ID.
Yeah, that would
Well,
work.
there you go. Yeah, that'll help too.
Again,
why not?
They want to turn you into a criminal. Law-abiding citizens into criminals
To
into
ride a
voters.
train?
Millions of people.
They're like, you're not nice enough to ride a train.
Right.
Can you imagine that?
Oh, I can't ride in a giant cart of mothballs and bum piss?
Yeah, guess what? You're not getting jammed into a subway with a broomstick today, friend.
Can you imagine that?
What an
though?
unlucky
Millions
day.
of people. Millions of people turned down. Just all you're doing is purchasing a plane ticket or a train ticket. You're turned down because your social media posts weren't glowing enough of "Dear Leader." Maybe you posted a Winnie the Pooh meme,
Yeah.
Right.
And now you can't travel.
Well, I've received, I think, 3 notifications this weekend from Twitter that I was in violation of German law.
Good.
And this is what happens, is not only are you no longer subject to only American law and federal law and with unconstitutional parameters, international governments, they put pressure. You think if they're putting pressure on Fast and the Furious 11 to change flags in the background, you don't think that they're pressuring the biggest tech companies in the world who control 90% of information? Of course they are, and of course our government is also beholden. Think it's a tapestry that has been weaved right before your very eyes. And I am tired of libertarians who say, well, it's not the government. No, it is the government. We need to get their tentacles out, and I don't know how we hit this reset button. I'm very open to suggestions. Comment below what you think we need to do at this point, and hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm. The best thing you can do, it's a live show.
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern, too. That's where you can watch it here. You can watch it on Rumble. You can subscribe on audio. We also have Mug Club, of course, where we'll be doing another hour today.
Yeah. And to prove we're live, we actually have the funeral of the Queen playing on CNN right now.
Oh, well, this just seems like a minefield I don't necessarily want to wade into.
Hey, you want to become network news real quick?
What?
Just leave that on and don't say anything for 20 minutes.
I'm sure Don Lemon chimes in here and there.
No, they don't. They're just sitting there going, oh, this is really important. This is world news.
Why is there the unwritten rule that you're only allowed to wear bunt cake hats at funerals?
I don't know.
Well,
It's weird.
It just seems like it's one of those things where you never see these silly hats anywhere outside of funerals with old ladies, and it's just as stupid looking there.
Well, it's a funeral hat.
Is that what it is?
Well,
Science.
that's where I wear them.
Is that what you buy them at Funeral Hats Warehouse?
Yeah, I go to Funeral Hats R Us.
You're going to like the way you mourn.
This is what William Wallace. Yeah. This is what William Wallace died for right here. So, yeah, you can come back and bury the royalty in Scotland. Great. How does that make sense? There's probably a really legitimate reason, and I'm being sarcastic.
Scotland
I don't want anybody
grave?
fact-checking me.
Scotland Yard's the police, yes?
No.
Or are they burying her in a Scotland Yard?
Maybe you're thinking of
in
Stomp the
Edinburgh.
Yard, and that's where
Oh.
Channing Tatum comes up and rubs
That's
his
what it
ass
is.
on the casket.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure he was going to do that.
He's a white guy who kind of dances like a black guy, and they
Yeah.
don't really like him, but they learn to respect him. That's Stomp the Yard. That's next.
But who gets served?
I have no idea.
Do they get served a bunt cake out of a hat?
Oh, Lord. Somebody forgot to tell him to do his hair.
This guy?
Yeah.
No,
That's
he
the
did it.
best.
He used a balloon.
That's the best guy you could get?
And he got CNN glasses. I love it.
He just came from the confessional booth with an altar boy.
Yeah, he certainly did.
I don't know. Wait, it's
Two of them.
It's the Episcopal Church. I guess they don't do confessional booth. I'm sorry.
No,
Look,
it's true.
Look.
He was just watching 2 lesbian reverends.
Yes.
His name was Most Reverend Strange.
I don't Queen is dead. That's sad. It's always sad when somebody dies, but
It is.
She's 96.
she's
She lived a good
96.
Yeah.
How's that sad? I don't understand. Like, you die.
No, it is
People
sad.
die
It's
at
sad when
96.
somebody dies.
No.
Don't run away from your feelings.
Yeah, Dave.
My Nana died at 95 and wanted to be dead for a long time. Like, look, she had a good life. This woman was a queen and died at 96. That should be something to be celebrated, not so much mourned.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the...
No, and
That's
honestly, that's a
when
really
you die at 96, that's a celebration of life. That's not a like, oh, what happened?
right.
No, it's not like they're surprised that she died.
No, Diana.
like-
that was more of a shock.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true. Well, that was more of a plan. But
yeah,
if
right,
you were-
exactly. That this one perpetrated.
It was this queen in a pair of
Allegedly,
scissors
yes,
with
yes,
a seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So interesting stat. If you're 75 or younger, you've never known another queen or king in England. And
That went to No Buckles limo
insane.
rental.
They went to antiarmoredvehicles.com.
Exactly.
Yeah, Princess Diana, let's be honest. A little bit. I would suspect foul play.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, a tiny bit.
But, I don't fully I know I'm just speculating, but why would they have reason to be jealous of the only person who doesn't look inbred?
No, it's true. They were like, what is this thing?
And it's not like she was that beautiful. It's just like it just looked like Wayne Gretzky in a wig, but compared
Yeah.
to the royal family, she was stunning.
Well, standing next to them, it was
Yes,
just
exactly.
like, what is that? Is it a person?
Exactly.
Well, she
Lord.
did miss out on all of this.
This is a procession of it's a cavalcade of Jim Henson characters,
Yes. Look at this.
and we're supposed to not acknowledge it.
Yeah, this guy's just wearing a a man-pleasing bib.
Yes. What is it, a crab shack?
Those are men of the clergy. What are you talking about?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. They're
you're right.
men of the cloth.
Yeah, sorry. My bad.
I apologize. Show some
dare you.
respect.
Admonish them.
Show some respect to those who were so inbred and promiscuous they put
This
on
is
wigs
the
and
right-
convinced the world that it was a style decision and not because of syphilis.
Yes.
I don't want the rest of the world to know that I look like Freddy's new nightmare.
No, don't look underneath.
I'm
Just
wearing
sores.
nothing.
That's what it was, just so people know that
Yeah.
the wigs was
Well,
syphilis.
syphilis sword.
Syphilis head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they had
You
him.
could see the brains.
My point is this.
96
The royalty, when do we say, look, now they don't even really have any power, and we have to act like it really matters?
Freddie Mercury was a great queen, and he only lived to be what, like 38 or something?
Something like that.
Lots of hits.
Also, I saw Chiron when Elton John was playing, and it said, mourning the Queen, and he was on screen, and it just said the Queen, and I laughed for about an hour and
Was
a half.
Elton John playing?
Yeah, he was playing something.
Was he doing Diana's song?
Yeah,
Candle in
exactly. The
Wind?
one where he brought it back. That's what he's
Yeah.
going to bring back is Candle in the Wind, and he is...
Oh, you know he's mailing it in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just candle in the wind. Oh, I got to do this again.
96-year-olds never will. Okay.
Oh, Queenie.
This
we
is
were
just
all
lazy now.
surprised.
I think the king fell asleep. Oh, boy.
And
Where's
you know it's going to
Charles?
be a long, long time for this funeral armored vehicle line. And as I said, are you just making this up as you go right now, Elton John?
Queen. You're a rocket queen.
You're a rocket queen.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Going up to
Just a-
heaven there alone.
The casket going around the moon and
Yeah.
orbit.
Yeah.
He's smoking, doing like the Shatner one. You're a rocket queen.
All right, let's move on here to Kamala Harris.
Rocket queen.
I was trying to
Sorry.
put this off because I hate talking about her.
I
Is it
don't
possible
like her.
that she's getting whiter?
Whiter?
Yeah.
I think they've been.
Have you seen her lately? It is weird. It's like she's like a biracial werewolf. Just
I've noticed she started
Hair straightening.
wearing one glove.
yes,
Oh, really?
Walking backwards more than usual.
yes. Well, that's because there's a mayor back there.
Yeah.
Comment if it's just me. It seems like she's getting whiter.
There's always a mayor back there.
So
Her hair caught fire the other day.
it's the Kamala Harris peed. Yeah. On September 11th, obviously this happened while we were on break, but of course, we were all remembering what happened there. I remember exactly where I was on September 11th. I was in a school, and I remember that we had it was at Centennial Regional High School, and we had some Muslim kids who laughed when they found out what
Really?
was going on. Yep.
Wow. I was on a
And I got
plane
in
with
trouble
No
be-
one listening to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They just went right to the airport.
Were you sober at that point?
No. I was. I honestly. And by the way, a lot of love to all the firefighters out there. Seriously, I think what you guys do is greatly appreciated. No, I woke up and I
They're no
went down.
TikTok nurses, but I'll give them credit.
No, but I went. Thank you for twerking out all the fires. I honestly woke up and I walked downstairs and I was hungover as per usual. And I was like, wow, what a terrible pilot. And my mom's like, what is wrong with you?
That's what I thought too.
But I honestly thought it was a terrible pilot. I had no idea that could happen on American soil.
Yeah, then when the second one happened, I was going, oh.
Yeah, it was like, what are the chances of two terrible pilots? I'm not even kidding. Like,
and honestly, the chances aren't that low because they were still drinking.
Yeah, it was pretty common.
Yeah.
And but no, I remember it just being the craziest day ever. And I guess the most it affected me, I was like, because they just kept gouging gas prices. I was like, wow, gas is like $6. This is a real terrible day for me.
Well,
like you didn't grasp it,
right?
Because it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
We had never been under attack. America was never a place you thought would be attacked. Like it was insane. The whole day was just.
And here's what's scary:
grasp it.
Is you have a generation, right? And I'm a millennial, but just below us, younger millennials and Generation Z, they grew up without really remembering or experiencing this.
Right.
And that really is formative.
Unity
just like
the next day. I remember that. Americans actually being proud to be
Rudy
American.
Giuliani, they called off the dogs and all the racist attacks because he cleaned up New York, right? And of course, I have some problems with stop and frisk, but he had the broken windows there where he cleaned up the subways. He changed that city. He went to America's mayor. George W. Bush had the highest approval ratings of any president after 9/11, I believe, in modern American history, and how quickly we forget. So anyways, September 11th happened this weekend. Kamala Harris decided to take advantage and compared the threat of 9/11. And just to be clear, if some of these answers don't really make sense, we all feel the same way when we watch this. Yeah. Because she compared 9/11 to the present domestic threat, which she doesn't really accurately fully describe. But she's getting whiter.
Let me start with, look, we're at the 21st
Shave it off,
marking,
Chuck.
if you will, of the September 11th attacks.
Yeah.
This was
It's an anniversary,
foreign
not a
terrorist
marking, Chuck.
attacking our democracy,
Yeah.
attacking this country. Yeah. We're now, as a nation, battling a threat from within. Is the threat equal or greater than what we faced after 9/11?
That's an interesting question. I have held many elected offices as district attorney, attorney general,
Also a lot of
senator,
balls.
now vice president,
Yes.
and there's an oath that we always take,
More so cupped.
which is to defend and uphold our Constitution against all enemies, foreign enemies.
you know it.
And we don't compare the two in the oath, but we know they both can exist, and we must defend against it.
What?
Huh?
The answer, here's the thing.
You're both terrible. How
Yes,
about that?
you're both. The answer is this. No. It's one of the stupidest questions I've ever heard in my life, Chuck. And by the way, you're at that point. I know you think going shorter makes you look like a chia pet. Shave it off.
Hey Chuck, go over there and see what one you like more.
Yeah.
If you like it here in America with what you consider a domestic terrorist, or if you do better with the Taliban.
Right. You know what? Better yet, just go over there. Go over there. Go jump in that vat of acid we have over there. It's we brought it in just for you. It's in the green room.
Yeah.
So she continues by going on to say, and this is the important part too, is she then goes on after this to talk about fascism. And we just talked about the credit card company.
Yeah.
We just talked about the laws that are being proposed, of course, by the left. True fascism, when you have letters written by government officials. But before we get to that, she went on to compare again America to the terrorism, 9/11 and January 6th. It's complete. Here's what happens when you have someone who's not smart, who's attempting to be a pseudo-intellectual. And I have problems with pseudo-intellectuals to begin with, but she's not even good at that. So something about January 6th and Trump supporters in America is being made weaker. This is one of the worst interviews of a sitting president that I've ever seen.
When I think about what we have been seeing in terms of the attacks from within, I
Your
wish
uterus
Attacks?
that we would approach it the same way.
You're a big fat
As Americans, instead of through some partisan lens. You know, I was obviously.
Sounds like you think this threat is as great. It's a
I
different
think it
threat,
is
but it is
a
as great
threat,
as
and I think it is very dangerous, and I think it is very harmful, and it makes us weaker.
Hold on a second. Before we go on, just remember, this is the lady saying it's weaker, talking about January 6th, where no one died aside from one person trying to enter the Capitol. But remember, this is the same broad who on Colbert said that the rioters, not the protesters, was actually asked about the violence, said they won't stop and they shouldn't stop. Same person.
Everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
She's always wearing the only pearl necklace that hasn't helped her advance her career.
That's exactly what I was.
I like to wear the one that's not dripping.
Yes. Who gave it to you? Mary Willie Brown? Oh, this.
Oh, this.
Oh, I don't know. It's this old thing.
Oh, this Montel Williams.
He gave it to me with a juicer.
Ew. No.
Oh, she's the worst.
Okay, so let's walk through some of her claims here, and you can feel free to hop in wherever you want, Jill. Some of her claims. Here's a claim, the first claim. She makes the claim that 9/11 and January 6th are in some way comparable. Okay, here's the truth. Almost 3,000 people, 2,990-something people died on September 11th. And then, of course, we can even look at the numbers of the ensuing wars. In Iraq, over 4,500 dead, 32,000 wounded. In Afghanistan, 2,300 dead, 20,000 wounded. Here's another truth. No one died. No one was killed on January 16th, aside from... What?
January 6th. You said 16th.
16th, January 6th. Sorry, September 11th, January 6th.
Yeah.
Aside from one lady who was shot by the police. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, this is something that everyone else was talking about. When they started with the news, they were saying 5 people died, right?
Yeah.
That was 5 people died on January 6th. Remember they said one was killed with a fire extinguisher?
Yeah.
5 people died, 5 people died, 5 people died, 5 people died, 5 people died. Nope. Outside of one lady who was shot by Capitol Police, let me just walk you through the 5 people who died. It was all natural causes. Number 1, Kevin Greason, heart attack. Number 2, Roseanne Boylan, drug overdose. Number 3, Benjamin Phillips, stroke. And then, of course, Officer Sicknick, this is the one who they said was attacked with a fire extinguisher, it was proven that he died of natural causes. Only number 5, Ashley Babbitt. She was the one who was shot by the Capitol Police. So how do you compare a targeting of civilians from a foreign terrorist threat to an incident where you had hundreds of thousands of Americans, by the way, the Capitol, who were completely nonviolent, to an incident where only one person was shot, and it was shot by members of the government? I don't know. I think this is where when people talk about common ground, I think we're so far beyond the pale. I don't know where I'm going to find common ground with someone. I agree. People shouldn't have run into the Capitol, the people who weren't welcomed in. I agree. Some people were, of course, disruptive, and I think that they should be charged with things like trespassing or if there was assault. But to compare to 9/11?
No. And is this the greatest threat to our democracy that we've ever experienced? Like, to make that claim, the reason that I keep coming back to that every single time that it happens, because Chuck Todd set it up by saying, this threat that we're facing right now to our democracy, the threat that she said that we're facing to our democracy right now. The only reason I bring that back is because that is the justification for extreme actions.
Right.
Every single time. It's the justification that they use. We have to go after Donald Trump because he's lying. We have to kick him off of social media because he's now a threat to our democracy. We have to suspend the rights of citizens because it's a threat. It's the same thing that we saw with COVID. We have to suspend the rights of people who can't and won't get vaccinated because they're a threat to the health of everybody else, right? It justifies extreme actions. And you can't let them get away with it every time. It was not the greatest threat to our democracy that we've ever had. Right now, what we're seeing from the Democratic Party going around Congress when they can't get legislation through that they like, going around Congress, leaning on social media companies, leaning on these credit card companies, that is a threat to democracy because that's when your rights cease to exist.
Yep.
Not when a side says, hey, we didn't believe what happened.
Right. And that brings me to my next point here. Of course, she goes on to then claim, and a lot of these people have Biden have as well, their claim that Republicans are semi-fascist is a term that they use. Here's one thing that I will say. For a lot of the attacks or even criticisms that are legitimate of Donald Trump, I love the fact that during COVID, he was getting into fights with members of the CDC. I love the fact that there are members of government who didn't like the president. I love gridlock. You know why? Because fascism can't breed in that kind of an ecosystem. It's not possible. It cannot replicate. When you have people who don't like each other, who aren't getting along, who aren't necessarily following lockstep, that's a good thing. Think about how concerning it is when a party achieves power, Democrats, and they write letters, like you said, to these private companies to create a gun registry. They want to pack the court if they don't get if they don't get the decisions that they like. And then they want you to be removed from the town square if you question election integrity. It's really important to note the difference between people who are in power and people who aren't. When people are in power and the only decisions they make are to accrue more power and to silence dissent. Again, Donald Trump, my complaint is he didn't do a whole lot with social media. He talked a big game, but he wanted everyone to be allowed on the platforms. Have you heard en masse Republicans, the semi-fascists, calling for liberals to be removed for misinformation? No, look, I don't even think anyone's going to argue it. Have you heard Republicans calling for people, conservatives, to be removed because they say, hey, you know what, maybe we need to strengthen our election integrity and have voter ID? No, it doesn't even exist. I don't know who's buying this. It really is weird, but this is where we have this chasm. So August 25th, Biden called Republicans semi-fascists, of course. He said, it's not just Trump. It's not a joke. It's the entire philosophy that underpins. It's almost like semi-fascism. And, of course, President Kamala Harris agreed with Chuck Todd to Meet the Press.
What is a semi-fascist?
Listen, I think that let's not get caught up in
Words?
in politicizing the fact that most people in America know that it is not helpful to our country when we have people who are denying elections or trying to obstruct the outcome
She means Hillary
of
Clinton.
an election where the largest number of people in our country voted for the President of the United States. And when we look at where we are, I think that we have to admit that there are attacks from within, to your first question.
Right.
And we need to take it seriously. And we need to stand up together, all of us, and think of this not through partisan lens, but as Americans. There are moments in time when we have to also agree, all good people who care about our country, that there are those who right now are vividly not defending our democracy. And I think we want that our commander-in-chief, that the President of the United States, will speak up and raise the alarm about what this means to our strength.
Huh?
It makes no sense, but the undercurrent is terrifying.
At least she's not the leader of the free world.
Well,
Right.
At least for the amount of facelift she's had, she doesn't have wrinkles all over her neck.
Well, she still does.
Oh yeah, you're right.
She said that with a little bile.
I don't like her.
Yeah, I can't stand her. She's really tough to watch.
I know.
She's tough to watch, and she is the definition. She was last place.
Last.
She's job insurance for Biden.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
She called the president racist, and then when she was like, "Oh, by the way, this is my VP."
This is my VP.
And we were all supposed to go, but didn't she? All right,
Yeah.
whatever, that's fine.
Wasn't she dead last? So here's another truth. There's only one party looking to regulate the ability to defend oneself. The first, we're talking about the Second Amendment. Then, of course, we go to the First Amendment, censor speech from political opposition. As she just said, hey, if you question election integrity, you're a threat to democracy. There's only one party that wants to weaponize the federal government against opposition, like FBI raids, like handing over credit card information if you happen to have purchased too many handguns. It's not even close. I don't know who's buying the bullshit at this point, but there's a good portion of this country that is. You're not going to find common ground with them. There are people with whom you can find common ground, but if people believe that limited government conservatives are the semi-fascists, then there is no pleasing you. Here's another truth for you. Don't let this tin can we're about to hit you in the teeth. There's also only one party that wants to, Of course, pack the court. And they want to nuke the filibuster for abortion and things like voting rights. And what they mean by that is not have to present ID. So if you say, hey, hold on a second, we need election integrity, they label you a fascist simply for wanting people to present identification to vote, while these actual fascists will change the fundamental institutions of government in order to be able to ram through things like no voter ID, things like packing the Supreme Court, doing away with the filibuster. Here she is describing it in her own cackles.
Our president has said he will not let the filibuster get in the way. If the Senate, through a majority vote, votes to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, he will sign it into law. You know what that means? In the midterms, we need to hold on to the Senate and get 2 more. And then we can put into law the protections
She
of Roe
holds
v.
up
Wade.
2 for way too long with her
Everything is on
fingers.
the line when you think about the millions of women and people in America who care about them,
Wants them to
who understand
smell
the
them.
significance of protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body
The
instead
Democrats
of her
get 52
government
Senate seats.
telling her what to do.
I hate you. Shut up.
52 Senate seats or more. Legislative filibuster gone, or just on this issue?
The president has been clear on this issue
He's
and
never
on a
clear.
very important issue in addition to that important issue, which is voting rights.
That's pretty much a fog.
She loves counting with her fingers.
She does.
Well,
2, 1, 2, 3. Like, what do you do? The hang loose sign? This is what I do. I do the signs. I do the signs with my fingers. The commander, and she you see, she can't even get it out without a laugh.
I love that she can get up to 2, and then it's like 3?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't.
She short circuits.
You know the signs.
About to say something there, Joe?
Somebody poured water on her batteries.
Oh my god.
I don't.
J5.
I hope they play this on a loop in every swing state, Senate race, whatever it may be, because this is what's waiting for you right now.
I think
We
we
don't
can-
like the results that we're getting, so we're going to end the filibuster.
Yeah.
The filibuster, by the way, that we have video of Democrats supporting, including, former Vice President himself, Joe Biden, saying that it's an institution.
Right.
We can't get rid of this, right? This is how you protect the country from losing its way, is to not just let everything kind of go through. And by the way, you start making promises to Joe Manchin and not fulfilling those promises to get his vote to swing legislation, which is what just happened. That's also bad for democracy. That's not how you're supposed to do business. Your ideas should be good enough to stand on their own, and they're not.
Can we really think of, outside of questioning the election, did Donald Trump, when he was in power, try and do away with any institutions? Did he try and change the number of seats to the courts? Did he encourage doing away with the filibuster? I mean, people may not have liked his appointments, but they were well within the realm of constitutionality and certainly the precedents that we have available to us. I can't even think of something comparable.
And they were confirmed, too, which is weird.
Right.
Can we
Bizarre.
agree that interview is the second worst 9/11?
Well, there was another one.
Top three.
Top three.
Yeah, I think we can say top three.
Top 3 for sure.
She's like the Halloween 3 of vice presidents.
Gotcha.
She has no home.
Right.
And you don't think, like, is this the same?
You're like,
I
it's
guess
not
she's
really
there.
the same thing.
I don't count her.
But it's not good.
No.
Halloween 3 is kind of good. She's not good.
She's the kind of broad who, when people played Duck, Duck, Goose, they didn't count her.
Right.
There's like, duck, and they moved on down the trail. And she is in charge
Duck, duck,
of
whore.
your life. The problem is right now, there are a handful of people. My litmus test for conspiracies, and I'll leave you with this. The litmus test for conspiracies is how many people have to be involved. Area 51, of course, you don't think that someone who's working there, a day worker, an independent contractor, is going to blab. So it's pretty tough to buy into these. But when you're talking about a handful of people, Elizabeth Warren, Eric Adams, right, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they send a letter out to credit card companies, and Visa, MasterCard, American Express say, aye, Captain, we'll make sure to create a gun registry. Sorry, not a gun registry. We'll create a code. When you have just a handful of people who say, you know what, we're going to do away with the legislative branch. Let's do away with the filibuster. Let's also, by the way, we have executive. You watch Schoolhouse Rock, right? You have executive, you have judicial, we have the legislative. Well, you know what? Let's just make it all executive. Let's do away with the legislative. Let's get rid of the filibuster and some of these guardrails that we have. You know what? Let's do away with the judicial, which is supposed to be the most autonomous. Let's pack the court as the current president sees fit. So, you know what? It's just all executive. It's all and what do you end up with? You end up with a king. You end up with a dictator. You end up with fascism. And this is what the left does. They project and they accuse you of doing exactly what it is that they are doing. They accuse you of being a fascist for not wanting your gun purchases being reported to the government, for not wanting people to be deplatformed, even people that you disagree with, for not wanting huge bailouts to companies who then turn back into the government's bidding, for not wanting to change the you're blamed for not trusting the institution of the Supreme Court because you want to keep it as is, and they want to pack it. Whose fault is it that we don't trust any of these institutions? Because I will tell you what, and we'll have Alex Jones on this Wednesday as an Ash Wednesday. We'll see what happens there.
Good luck.
Get me fitted for my tinfoil hat, because I'm at the point where I'm going, there are just a few people running this game, and they are running it into the ground. We're going to go to Mug Club here, YouTube. Thank you very much, but not really. And by the way, if you're watching, hit the like button, hit the share button. That helps with the algorithm. And we're going to do another 45 minutes to an hour here on Mug Club with the Little Mermaid trailer?
Little Mermaid.
Oh, my God. This is a bad day. YouTube, piss off.